So if you have probably turned on your TV at all to the NFL Network, you recognize our guest here is Patrick Claybon, news anchor for the NFL Network. Patrick, thank you so much for being here.
All right, thanks for having me, man. It's anytime I can hang out with anybody and without the barrier of time or somebody in my ear. I like people. That's why I spend so much time on Twitter. So anytime, man.
So through a quick search through Google and mostly through your NFL bio, I know you went to Troy and then you spent some time at is it Dothan, Alabama?
Yep, Dothan. The Circle City.
And then Birmingham before you went to the NFL Network. And then I don't know if this is the same Patrick Claybon. You were in a movie called Threshold.
Fortunately, there's only one of me. Okay. I'm the lesser talented of the adults in my household. My wife is a producer. She's won Emmys with Fox Sports, and she spends a lot of time with people who make things. And so she worked with somebody who worked on this movie, and they were like, we need somebody in a relatively low budget movie to be a news anchor. And I'm your guy, right? This is I can really get into the teeth of that role. And so I went over to this spot in LA. We put up a green screen and I read something. And at some point, I'm going to watch the movie.
I was just going to say, I'm a big horror movie fan. So once I saw it was a horror movie, I'm like, I'm in. I will watch this movie, especially if Patrick's in it.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't even know if I made the final cut, but we'll see.
It's on your IMDb page for what that's worth.
Yeah. It's worth $114.
So I wanted to ask, so I know those are some quick hits about how you got to the NFL Network, but you can maybe expand on that, because I know when I approached you about being on the show, it just as like a casual viewer of ESPN and like NFL Network and a lot of sports related networks, it seems like it is much like in much of society, it is very difficult for Black and brown men and women to get anywhere in a place of leadership. But especially in these organizations where there is a lot of those roles given to folks who were former professional players. So if you could maybe expand on kind of your own experience going from Troy to the NFL.
Well, I think, honestly, I would be remiss if I didn't point out, the barriers that keep a lot of Black and brown people out of certain positions most of them are purely financial, right? I've had opportunities. My mother was the first Black female graduate of UAB's School of Psychiatry. Her and my father were both medical doctors who crossed so many barriers to their success, right? Which at any point could have been derailed by any angry white person, honestly. Could have kept any of the success that my family had from happening at any point. Fortunately, it didn't. And so I am a child of privilege, right? Because of their success, I was able to do things. I was able to take the Dale County Bureau reporter job starting at $19,000 a year in Dothan. I was able to take that job without a worry. I didn't have any student loans to pay off. The state of Alabama in 1983, there, and years after, before it was subsequently destroyed, there was a prepaid Alabama college tuition program. It was called PACT, and my parents bought into that, and so my school was paid for. First of all, before we talk about any of the work that I've done, like any aspect of the hard work and brow furrowing that got me to where I am, that is fundamental to me, right? The position that my parents put me in, which is something I played no role in that. And so I am the footnote to their story. But in terms of, what got me here, I just kind of always showed up, right? That was what I did. And so to start in sports reporting, it's hard. It's very difficult to just get a sports reporter job. To just like you finish J school, You put a reel together, you intern somewhere, and it's like, hey, I want to be a sports reporter. It's like, oh, congratulations. You and a billion other people do, especially people my age, right? You grew up watching Stuart Scott. You watch SportsCenter a billion times every single morning. And it's like, well, just go do that. Well, there's just not very many places to do that. And so I covered murders and train accidents and whatever I could. But then on Friday night, we had Friday night football in Dothan. And so, we're just looking for shooters. Everybody, all the news reporters shot football. Brad Sherwood, who was our sports director at the time, he let me front my highlights, kind of build up my resume. When Brad got out of the business, when Chris Harris was the sports guy, me and Chris did sports briefly before he went to Birmingham. And then I was the sports guy. And so it's just kind of like one thing led to another. And when NFL Network was starting NFL Now, which at the time was a digital property, they were going to hire a group of people, and there were interviews. And the talent guy at the network at the time, I was hired, Mark Watts, saw me in a list and brought me in on an interview. Months and months and months went by, and I finally called, and I was like, hey, what's going on? I remember it was SEC Media Days. I went behind the stage. My wife, now my girlfriend at the time, she had gotten a job out here in Los Angeles. And so we were trying to figure out what was going on. So I just called him, and I'm like, hey, is this real? What's going to happen? So, yeah, we went with two other people. We're only going to hire two positions now, which actually that was Colleen Wolfe and Marcus took at the time. And so I was, obviously I was pretty beat up. I was like, all right. And he's like, hey, you keep your head up. The speech that people give when they don't give you a job, right? And then he's like, yeah, well, we got this news update anchor position that we're going to try to fill. And, I just kind of fired back because I was pissed off. I was like, if that's a real thing, I'll be there on Thursday. I had already booked a flight to come see my girlfriend. And I came, I interviewed, they gave me that job, and that's it. I'm still here. I'm holding on. Yeah.
That's a pretty incredible run, like in that amount of time to get from where you were in Dothan to the NFL. I've been. But before we get into the next question, I wanted to ask, like, what were some of the experiences that shaped your approach as a sports director, both in Dothan and Birmingham?
Honestly, it was the news experience, truly, because you have to navigate a lot of people, right? You talk to congressional candidates, you talk to business developers who later wind up in jail, you talk to police chiefs who you find named their son after Klansmen, right? You talk to district attorneys who have subsequently been investigated. You deal with a lot of unsavory people, but you also deal with a lot of people who are just going through things. And you have to tell their story, and you have to tell it fairly, and you have a very short amount of time to do it. And in the sports world, there's a score. There's these instant parameters to the story that provide context, but it's not a complete and total context. And so you just have to have that little bit of time to tell that little part of the story, that little nugget that kind of fleshes out and provides your experience of that person to the people watching. And so that's, when I was in charge of the story, that's what we were trying to do. We were just trying to tell a story and have fun doing it. Cause like I said, I started at 19K. Like nobody in this is in this for glitz and glam and money. Like we're just in it because we have a narrow skill set of things that we can accomplish. And we try to be good at it. Yeah. And so like when I was briefly calling the shots in both locations, that's what it was. And honestly, in Birmingham, there was there was so much going on. We had a GM that I believe was accused of cooking the books. He was out. There was just a lot of stuff going on. In between the 5 and the 6 one day, he called me up to his office, slid a contract across the table, and was like, "Hey, you want to sign this?" And at the time, in years after that, I felt like that was the biggest mistake I'd ever made in my life. I was able to get out of that contract to get this job here in Los Angeles. But take a deep breath before you sign anything, folks. Take a real deep breath.
Yeah. One thing, because I've been following you on Twitter for a while, and I've noticed it seems like there's a parallel, I think, between some of the conversations that are going on now and have been going on, I would say, over the last 4 to 5 years in the NFL specifically, where I think there's this conception of both, anchors that are on the network and also, the parallel of players in the league that can only say so much, right, when it comes to some of these social issues that have now really come to the forefront. And I'm going to read this to you, even though it's your tweet. It was from 2016, and it popped up on one of those memory things. I believe it was right around the time the conversation about kneeling was going on. You said people call them microaggressions. What they really are building blocks, manifestations of justifications for pulling the trigger. All of it to reinforce to you the idea that you are scary, dangerous, in need of control. Reason to make someone fear for their life. Get called sensitive if it bothers you when the motorist locks a door at your walking the dog, or a purse getting clutched in an elevator. But those same attitudes get used in order to justify the bullets flying in your direction. The very same ones, because you are scary, dangerous, like a demon. It's clear that you've had, just on any level, as a black man, had to deal with these microaggressions throughout your life. But can you maybe get into how some of these micro and macroaggressions, and maybe, maybe you've experienced while working in the sports industry?
Honestly, I've always kind of been a forward face, right? And so you get when you have a TV camera, as I did when I started in Dale County, Alabama, it's like a privilege, right? And you've got the logo of a trusted news leader on your shirt, or on your 1994 Ford Escort station wagon. And so you get protected in that aspect. And so at work, the only times that things really happen is on Twitter or on Instagram or in an angry email, right? It's when you're out of work, right? When you got the blue lights in the mirror, that you're never really 100% safe, right? Like I can't take this off. Right. And so it's hard to tell when or where those things get applied. You just kind of, you feel like they are because it's applied everywhere else. And that's one thing that I've always known. For example, we had what's it called? Implicit bias training, a few weeks ago, which, I have qualms with because why are we calling it implicit? We live in a country founded on stolen land, right? Yeah. built by stolen people. I don't think it was an accident that all of those people looked a certain way. But beside that point, there was a discussion of what can we do to empower women in the workplace? And I was just pay them as much as you pay us. Right. It seems like it's a very simple thing, right?
Right.
There are agencies, right, that negotiate these contracts, media contracts, all sorts of contracts. They know exactly how much women and minorities are getting paid. Somebody needs to highlight, what the discrepancies are, and we can fill those gaps. I don't know how much everybody's getting paid. I know I'm getting what I feel like I can be comfortable enough. If I'm able to, I bet on myself every contract. We bought this house, We had a son. We've since had a daughter.
I was going to say, congratulations. I know you have a newborn.
I feel like, it's a gamble. Like, I guess everybody's kind of gambling. But, the security is only as long as my contract is. And so I think that's where you feel it. Right. And it was weird to hear you read back that tweet, because it's kind of like I feel, you feel your evolution as a person. And at that point, that security, I didn't feel as secure as I do now. So like the inner voice that I hear in that is kind of like a pleading, right? Like this is my experience. Yeah. Pay attention to my experience and respect me as a person, please. Right. And as I've gotten more secure, that please, pardon my French, it kind of turns into a fuck you, right? Like, yeah. Like, especially, as we've seen, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, the world has changed. Perception from a lot of people has changed, and the willingness of a lot of people to beg for somebody else to see them as human has just kind of gone down the drain. And so that's where you feel it. Yeah. In terms of discussing protests, discussing racial injustice, you have to tiptoe, or I felt like at the very least, and I believe that to be the case, that I had to tiptoe into those discussions and come at it from a very timid point of view to protect my employment. And again, as a child of privilege who's had every opportunity in the world, I felt that way. Yeah. So what's it like for all of the Black journalists locally who don't have that, right? Right. It's like this self-engaged system of silence, and all it takes is a feeling, and that feeling doesn't even have to be applied at work. It can be applied everywhere else but work, and it catches everybody.
Mm-hmm. And I think it resonates, like you said, like the fact that so much has changed, because I know you had, and I watched that social justice roundtable, which the thought of that even being on a network,
right,
just a few years back in 2016, just seemed like impossible. How did that get started?
It started first. I think you have to start with the pandemic, and everybody being at home, their normal outlets kind of being just taken away. You're at home, you doom scroll on Twitter, you watch some news, and that put a lot of people to pay attention, right? And then people in Minneapolis and in Louisville, they just decided to do it. They started something, and that caught on everywhere. Right. And it made those in positions of power who normally yielded to white conservative points of view to provide space and cover to people to speak up. And so there were a couple of, NFL league-wide meetings and Zoom calls where people spoke their minds. And born of that were these specials. And I just had, my daughter Sage was just born, and I was like, man, here I am, this thing I've been preparing my whole life for, I'm going to miss out. But they reached out to me. There was a Zoom call where, I don't even remember what I said. They were just like, hey, does anybody want to say anything? And, I turned the camera on and I just, started talking. Yeah. And, people reached out to me and they said, hey, would you like to be involved? And I said, yeah, I want to be involved. And they asked for, some suggestions of people to have on. And Justin Jackson was the first name in my mind. Like he's spectacular. And if that's the future, if that's what young people in America look like, then the kids are all right, man. Right. We got the like the Mississippi State flag is going to change. Right? Like, I did not think that was going to happen. Like, these kids are able to, and I call them kids, I guess, because I'm old. I got 2 kids now. It's like, whatever. Like, I'm a kid, but they're exceeding even my imagination. And if I can facilitate that, then that's it, man. If they take me out of here, that's one of the proudest moments of my career is just being a part of that on our network. It's where I wish, if we could get, I would like to do some adversarial interviews, hey, like Chuck Todd, come on NFL Network. I got some questions for you, like let's do it. But it's, I'm just really proud that, I was able to reach my coworkers in that aspect, and everybody that did, because people come at it from so many different ways, and we got a lot of talented black folks, and we got some real allies here in LA at the NFL Network, and I couldn't be more proud.
It was fantastic. So for everyone listening, if you have a chance, if you just get on YouTube and look at Patrick Claybon, it's on his videos. It's really, really great. There's this constant, I thought it would go away at this point, but it's only gotten worse, this idea that players should stick to sports. And that people are mad that their relaxation while watching sports is now uncomfortable. I have my own thoughts, but would love to hear yours.
It's probably 78% of that is just a lie. Right. Nobody, those people don't want people to stick to sports. They would like them to echo their politics, which is why when they initially believed that the hashtag "We Want to Play," which was a union hashtag that the Players Association used, when they thought that meant that college football players just wanted to play instead of, wanting protections from this virus that's killed 170,000 people, they were like, yeah, see, listen to these kids. They want to play. The kids want to play. But then when they find out, right, that these kids would like to organize, they would like to capture labor power for themselves, that's not what they want to hear. So a lot of those people are lying, and a lot of those people are bad people. There are probably some folks that legitimately just want to watch the game, and you can do that. There's nothing stopping you from just watching the game. I doubt that Joe Buck or Troy Aikman or Tony Romo are going to delve into redlining in the middle of broadcast. I would like that. They're probably not going to do that. Right. So there's nothing keeping you from just enjoying the game. There's plenty of outlets that just give you the game. Mm-hmm. It's not up to you to dictate how we do our job as journalists. I guess you could watch something else. I guess you could watch another league. But as long as those people are disproportionately powered in America and are able to facilitate the outcomes that they want, which harm people, and we have an opportunity to talk about those things, then we're going to talk about them. Like, period. So, like, I guess, like, I'm sorry if there was, and there was, by the way, there was this network positioned people talking about the military and disrespecting the flag and all of that stuff. I didn't tell them to stick to sports.
Right.
I would have a conversation with them about the thing that they're talking about. So if you don't like what somebody's talking about, then you should have a conversation about that subject, as opposed to just saying, stick to sport. You're not saying anything. Mm-hmm. That you're just not doing anything, and you're demonstrating a weakness to your argument. So I don't pay attention to it at all.
Yeah. Because you have the opportunity to engage with a lot of players and coaches and just people in the NFL, when it comes to leading in this kind of situation that we're all in now, right? Where people are now understanding, or some folks are finally understanding where we're at. What are some characteristics or approaches in terms of leadership that you think should be successful or should be kind of considered for folks who are in leadership positions?
Leadership positions in sports or leadership positions everywhere?
I would say let's focus on sports, and then if you have anything that you think it would apply outside of sports as well. I mean, I'm here to hear everything you got to say.
It's kind of incumbent on everybody to learn what the root issue of problems are, right? And if, like, for example, the league goes through hell trying to find solutions for its hiring practices for coaches and executives. And so we have a Rooney Rule, right, which its main purpose to me is facilitating a conversation about the problem itself. But you're not going to have the problem solved successfully until the societal issues are corrected. Otherwise, you're just kind of picking and choosing winners and losers individually for your 32 teams. And so it's, as you know, people in leadership positions, when they're trying to address like total United States or total planet Earth issues, that's kind of where they need to start and find their role in it. Because there's only, like, listening to people can only kind of get you so far, especially if you don't equalize the power dynamic. Because when you've got people under you who are speaking to you and you control, you know, their access to wealth, their continued employment, their access to childcare, like when you have that over people, a lot of them might not be fully invested, even in 2020, even when the conversations are so much freer than they were in previous years. Yeah. A lot of people may not be willing to test, you know, that insecurity. And so it's just, leaders just have to learn what the root causes are, and then they have to discuss them on equal footing with their, you know, with their coworkers, with their subordinates, and then you go forward. It's so hard to kind of, it's easy in sports. You know, your coach is your leader. You know, they dictate everything. Outside of sports, it's not that way. Because, you know, humans are fallible, right? Unless if you come up with an idea that works, right? Like, for example, the United States government should provide healthcare to all of its citizens. Hey, you know,
yeah,
let's do that. If you have a person that is behind that idea, then that person is prone to their mistakes, their history, whatever they're doing. And so for leaders in one community, in the sports community, to step out, you don't get to be a leader in that. And so if you want to facilitate positive discussions, you kind of have to reach out to the overall ideas of the goals that you want to accomplish in sports and out of sports. Yeah. Because otherwise you get hung up in people, and it's, you know, we're not perfect.
Right. And I want to thank you for not just for being on the show, but for also, I think because my background is in communication, wrote a paper. My dissertation was on fantasy football, actually, but on like the language that people use when talking about players. And I think by engaging not just in that kind of work, but also engaging with folks who can broaden my own perspective, has helped me realize a lot of how a lot of these things are connected, and I try in whatever capacity I can to get other people to see those connections as well, right? Like the fact that conversation of, you know, why don't they just stick to sports, and not understanding that you cannot separate race from sports, right? Given the demographic makeup of it, but also understanding the small things that quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson are still talked about as for their athleticism and not their intelligence. And it kind of reaches the top where coaches like Eric Bieniemy are not given a fair shake at a leadership position at a coaching level. So could you share your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's all the same thing. And one of the frequent refrains, right, that we get from the stick to sports people is, you make everything about race. Well, it is. Like it is. Like it's a foundational aspect of the society that, the people who started it owned human beings and their descendants as chattel. Like that's a fact. And that system was specifically based on this concept, which is a lie, of biological race, which isn't a thing. It's just a lie that it expects you to believe so many things, right? It expects you to believe that certain people are less intelligent, just purely based on the hue of their skin, which is it's so provably false and has been proven false so many times. But because it benefits certain people, it continues to exist, and so that's how you end up with, Doug Williams breaking this barrier, which was a imposed barrier. Right? You had a black quarterback win a Super Bowl in the 80s, but there was no thing keeping that from happening. There were people keeping that from happening. And you try to change conversations so that it happens less. But it's just a fundamental aspect of America. And I don't really know where to take it. Where you have like, you've seen Doug Peterson leave Andy Reid's staff, not as the play caller, but as the offensive coordinator, and he gets the job in Philadelphia, right? You got Matt Nagy as the offensive coordinator, not a play caller, gets the job in Chicago. Eric Bieniemy, again, Andy Reid's calling the plays, but he's the offensive coordinator. They win the Super Bowl. Where's his job? It's impossible to me to be convinced that his blackness doesn't have a significant role in that.
Right.
And if somebody were to respond to that, it's like, well, are you accusing the league of being racist? And it's like, no, I'm accusing America of being racist.
Yeah.
And it's not an accusation. It's history. It's fact. So we live in a fundamentally racist society that is determined to negatively impact the lives of black people. It's like, well, how can we have a 70% black league if that's true? Well, it's labor. It's labor that's making money for people. And fan response means a lot. Black coaches significantly, in terms of having time to win, that fan feeling can go south really fast, right? Especially when people believe that you're just not as smart. You're not as much as a football guy. Yeah. You don't meet X, and X, which are just white, and white.
Right. I remember even conversations when Lamar Jackson was getting into the league about the way that he talked, that it would negatively impact his draft stock.
So it's, who are the ones that are making these decisions, and why are they making them like that? And whether it's an accident or not, whether it's just like, oh, I didn't know. Well, if somebody says that you burned down my house, you still burned down my house. I don't know how you impose consequences, but I'm glad that the rule exists that we can, have conversations about hiring practices, not just in the league, but everywhere. Yeah. That's a start, because you have to start somewhere.
Yeah. Patrick, thank you. Like I said, man, I really appreciate you taking the time for this.
All right. Thanks for having me, man.